Hey there, this is Sunday Show on Hromadske coming to you from Kiev. My name is Maksym Eristavi. I'm a guest co-host here tonight. And also we're having a special Pride edition devoted to KyivPride that just happened in the Ukrainian capital and, for now remains the biggest Pride event in Eastern Europe. I have a terrific company of guests here with me tonight. It's actually all of you participated in today's Pride, so I'm going to just quickly introduce you. First of all, we have Stewart McDonald, who's a member of the UK Parliament from Scotland. We have Rebecca Harms, who's a member of the European Parliament. We have Nick Modoratsky, who is part of the group of Ukrainian veterans who marched with KyivPride today. And we have Natalie Virhov, who is a journalist covering queer issues in Eastern Europe as well. So thank you so much for joining us. It's actually, while we're going to be showing some pictures from today's Pride, there are a couple of super important things that actually happened there, and it's first and foremost, it's about the size of crowd. So the KyivPride was managed to double the size of its crowd from around 4,000 last year to almost 8,000 or over 8,000. We're still waiting for numbers to confirm. It was quite peaceful, so it's officially the fourth peaceful Pride in the Ukrainian history, and it's also remains the biggest Pride event in Eastern Europe. And for those of our viewers who do not know the situation in Eastern Europe, unfortunately, the majority of countries in Eastern Europe, like Russia, Belarus, Azerbaijan, Armenia, Georgia, Moldova, and Ukraine, most of them do not have opportunities to have those civil rights marches for civil rights equality, except Ukraine and Moldova and Georgia. We're going to talk actually about Georgia and their attempts to do inaugural Pride this week. And I actually want to bring one of our guests that unfortunately cannot join for us, but that was another major, huge story in the region. In Georgia, there was an attempt to do inaugural first ever Tbilisi Pride. And Georgia is one of the most homophobic countries in the region, and maybe one of the most homophobic in the world. However, the attempt of local activists, local queer activists, to do that event and gather support regional has absolutely captivated our attention. And even at today's Tbilisi Pride, in the first row, we had a person with Tbilisi Pride t-shirt, and we were also cheering for Tbilisi Pride, guys. I know that unfortunately, because of other political development in Tbilisi, they postponed their Pride a bit, and they joined the crowd that protesting right now at the Georgian parliament in Tbilisi. I have Giorgi Tabagari with us live via Skype. He's joining from Tbilisi. Hi, Giorgi. Thank you so much for taking time from the protests.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, and thank you so much. Again, there was a lot of solidarity for you at Kiev Pride today. But tell us a bit more about your decision to postpone the Pride March. Since there was a bit of misreporting in international press about it, somebody said that it has been canceled because of threats of far rights, which those threats were there. But at the same time, I know that you tried to emphasize that that wasn't the case, and there is a different situation there. So please enlighten us.
First, congratulations on the successful Pride. I'm happy to see the pictures of Kiev Pride. It has been an inspiration for us, how it was growing over the years. And we have been using a lot this argument, how we can actually progress with the movement and take an example from KyivPride, Belgrade Pride, and then the countries which are actually having sort of similar historical or cultural context. As regards to Tbilisi Pride, yes, we have postponed it when we have been underlining this everywhere. Thing was 2 days before, basically a day and a half before the march, which was supposed to happen yesterday morning. Over 200 people were arrested, and police has been using the force at the Tbilisi protest. So the situation was a little tense politically. And in this situation, going out for the pride, when the police, we were not sure what is the capacity of the police at the moment, how much did they actually get asleep, or whether they are actually able to mobilize the force. And the whole situation was a little messy and went out of hand. So even though we had a lot of guests and a lot of international guests arrived in Tbilisi, and it was very hard to make this decision because we had put like 8 months of work to come to this day. But up until now, I think we will wait for the right day at this point before the situation gets calmed down. And hopefully within this week, we will try and march in the streets of Tbilisi.
Well, tell me, you mentioned that there was a lot of international support. However, are you satisfied with the diplomatic support, which was, and you mentioned Kiev, right? And in 2012, 2013, international support was crucial to actually provide security because local authorities would not care about queer Ukrainians being hurt, but they did care about foreigners. So in terms of response and, backing, are you satisfied with what you got?
Well, the thing is, I think we did a tremendous job in terms of getting international support. We were getting support from all over the world. There was petition going on, and the members of the European Parliament were sending the supporting messages, and the local diplomats and international organizations. So the pressure was mounting, that the government felt this pressure, and they were really scared about the possibility that something would go wrong on the march. And it also affected to the fact how we were dealing with all the challenges that we had in the negotiations with government. So at this point, I think we got enough support from internationals, and the government knew that. And that was exactly the thing. We were relying on international pressure because they care more about the lives of citizens. It makes sense because it's a diplomatic trouble. If a foreigner citizen will get into trouble in your local event, and you fail to provide safety, basically. So yeah, government was afraid of this, and but we also used it in our benefit as well. That's why international solidarity matters so much in this kind of events, because if we don't support each other, if we don't express solidarity, then events like Tbilisi Pride or Kiev Pride will have less of a chance to succeed. So it matters a lot. Sometimes just posting a picture or sharing a post online doesn't really take a lot of effort, but it actually helps a lot of people who live in a tough environment, and it helps them to advocate for changes. So yeah, whoever is watching, be supportive to the queer fights across the world, not just in Georgia or Ukraine.
Giorgi, I have a very quick last question for you. I've seen some reactions from Georgian civil society online, especially during Tbilisi Pride. Personally, I found it that there was a bit of lacking support on behalf of some civil society people, and there were also opposing views within some LGBT organizations in Georgia. So I mean, for me, it's again not surprising since all over the region happens, and I think we sometimes overemphasize that all queer people represent the whole queer community and it's supposed to have supposedly the same views. But what do you have to say about that criticism that you pushed too hard too early?
Yeah, first of all, I don't think it's early because we have been doing Aida Hot since 2012, and the Georgian underground queer community has been thriving. The club scene and the safe spaces. We have up to 10 different queer friendly places in Tbilisi, and we have events where 1,500 people attend at clubs. So as for the criticism, this is very normal. When we were planning Tbilisi Pride in October 2018, we knew that there would be differences. It's never really the Pride events are always controversial, irrespective where it's taking place, and we knew that there would be a lot of people, both in the community or in general public, who would be opposing this. But again, it's still hard when you see that and we know like what we have been doing and what we had to go through, and it's really hard to see when people often do not notice like your effort. But this is okay as well. I think this is also acceptable and normal. But when it comes to queer community, I mean, some of them are afraid, and out of fear, it's normal to be afraid in this kind of countries, and it's okay to talk about this as well. But we will prove, and we have already proven that we were right in our approach, and the amount of support that we gained, even the community members in the past few days has shifted to the support and solidarity to Tbilisi Pride. As for the general and NGO community or the civil society, that's not correct, because in general the other civil society organizations have been supportive. 20 major organizations have made supportive statements in the past few days, or even before as well. And we have very good relations with the local civil society organization. But even with the queer organizations, it's going to pass. I mean, we need to be accepted to the fact that in no other movement as well, there is no general unity. In women's movement or any movement that you can name, there always division in some sort. And why would queer community be different? We have a lot of ideological difference, or a lot of difference on many issues. So it's very normal.
Thank you, Giorgi, so much for joining us and taking time for your really busy life in Tbilisi. That was Giorgi Tabagari, who's a founder of Tbilisi Pride. Actually, do you guys have any thoughts on what is happening in Georgia? I think that a lot of people followed an anti-Russian protest and then the whole drama with Tbilisi Pride very carefully, Nick.
If that's their first time, they have a long way to go. Well, I really be glad that the guys will catch up with us, and I think they will. It's a big, hard wait, but I guess they're gonna succeed with that.
Don't you think that probably they deal with the same kind of issues in terms of Russian invasion? There's been all geopolitical.
There's always the same kind of problem when Russia is around. There's just because of the culture, because of the stereotypes, cliches. It's always close to each other. Those cliches, stereotypes, and Russia. It's kind of almost the same thing.
Guys, Stuart, you've been to Georgia, right? No. So when you look
to the east of Ukraine, but not to Georgia.
That's a bit further to the east. So in terms of looking at these countries, and I know that you deal a lot of defense issues at the British Parliament. So in regarding that, in looking how it's all interconnected in terms of security and then geopolitics and mix of it with military activity in the east or in Georgia, how do you find it that it might be a bit concerning that identity politics is so transfixed with something explosive as military conflicts?
I think that, in this part of the world, that's kind of inevitable, as you've kind of alluded to. And what I would say to folk back in the UK is, pick up a book or actually go onto social media and learn about this stuff, understand this stuff. And, I'm quite struck by what your guest just said about the importance of international solidarity. Sure, we can all fire off a tweet any day of the week. I fire off several every hour.
That's what they do.
What I would say is, if you're able to, yourself or in a group, get on a flight, go and visit somewhere where you have LGBT communities who are fighting to be heard, where it's not just as simple as people hate gays, but there's all these other kind of geopolitical issues in amongst that trying to suffocate what we saw today, which was just raw joy, determination to be heard, to be seen, and then just to pack up and go home at the end of it.
Rebecca, at the European Parliament, there was always kind of issues with, in terms of Russian invasion of Ukraine, Ukrainian political prisoners back in Russia. They're quite often separated from human rights equality inside Ukraine. And I know that a lot of members of the European Parliament kind of see those issues differently. So when we around in Brussels and try to have meetings with them, you always find people who understand that this is part of the larger issue, and also people who will send people who are just responsible for LGBT issues on their team to meet you, saying like this is one of the not so much important issues. Why do you think that after all these years, and especially in the European Parliament, do you agree with Stewart that there's just lack of people traveling and see what is happening here and understand clearly?
So I would agree, and I would even underline that more people should travel direction east. So in the European Union, for example, when I remember the Greek crisis, many people traveled to Greece. When we had the young people in Spain on the streets, many people traveled in the EU to Spain. But there's until today less readiness and less openness to really go east. And I think this is something we have to change. And I sometimes see it as if, in the West, they until today do not understand how difficult it is for nowadays societies in our Eastern partner countries and all over the Eastern neighborhood, how difficult it is to overcome the legacy of Soviet Union. And doing this while being, again, under attack and under occupation by Putin and the Kremlin and their forces. So it's even more complicated. And so I'm convinced the Eastern partner countries and the Eastern neighborhood, even Russia, deserves more attention and more presence of the EU politicians.
I don't think that we should, we'll disagree, especially with Natalie covering the issues in the region, that it's very hard to get those stories out, to get published by a lot of mainstream media. Well, maybe in my case, I'm a lousy journalist and nobody likes to publish me. But anyway, I would love to see more stories. And, but sometimes it's whether you fit the narrative or not. Your story fits the narrative.
Yes.
Whether it's about fear, something bad happened, right? So as we had, unfortunately, ongoing pogroms in Chechnya. But then when you try to tell something from the side of success story, it doesn't go so well.
And the other issue is that telling perhaps less, small success stories, perhaps even stories that are happening sort of in the regions, are a bit more difficult to sort of get out there. The stories that are, I guess, easiest to get out there are the ones that are tied to the I don't really know how to go, but sort of, the issues that are already making breaking news. So, for example, if you can tie an LGBT, obviously the pogroms in Chechnya, if you can tie another story to that, or even the war, that kind of stuff is easier to sell. And then I think, and again, another big one, U.S., Trump. If you can tie in a story that's to like Russia or the U.S., that's, the editors, in my experience, are much more likely to pick that up. And I think where that leaves a gap is that there's so many amazing stories or devastating stories that are happening I guess separate from those US or they're happening sort of in an isolated space, and they might not have that kind of, they might be so important to tell, but they might not have a global significance or
the big global stories are there is the help of international conservative groups that And we've seen it, even like here, it's visible that they help to frame the messages, support them with the resources, what they have in different ways. So that story is not there, right?
Well, the problem is they cannot separate the religion, the cliches, the culture from the people's fight for their own rights. Because you see, I'll try to explain as I see it. This KyivPride, this was March for our rights, for equal rights. It was about the common rights for the, for the property between the partners, the right to access to the partner at the hospital, not testify against the partner in the court, and stuff like this. It's just in terms of law. It's inside the law. This is what we wanted. But those people, I don't know what is their problem, but they still push the religion in it, the family in it. They think it's contagious. They think people can become gay just like that.
So you're saying like it's mostly about bureaucracy for you, and for them it's about like something.
Like something, yes. Well, first of all, I think not just pride, but there's have to be a way to educate them that those things we did today and those prides are not about religion, culture, families. It's about rights. Simple as that.
Absolutely.
That's it. But those protests, it just have no logic in it because, well.
But they do have right for it.
They have so are we, and
if they stay non-violent
until they say no violence.
Sure. And what I really wish that I once will participate in a Kiev Pride which does not need anymore the protection by police. So it's a vision, and a lot of dialogue probably will be necessary for that.
It's a lot of education.
Let's try to go.
Also, Stewart made at the Pride a very good point that I heard that, sometimes this element of civil rights marches, that it's still happening so tense on the European continent, it's kind of lost on participants of other prides.
Absolutely. I mean, I just think of my experience of this one. I mean, usually the night before you're having a party, the morning of you crack open some champagne. When the march finishes, you go and watch some drag queens maybe, and you have lots more champagne. But this is a genuine, we use the phrase in the UK, pride as a protest, and yes it is, but this was a real protest. It was a genuine, real protest. And just to come back on what you were saying, I kind of, perhaps naively, believe in the old-fashioned, you can beat fiction with fact. So when you hear things like, this is against family values and all the rest of it, last year I went on Pride with my partner and my niece. Do I not have family values as an uncle? Of course I have family values. Same with LGBT parents and all the rest of it. I think part of the problem is the space in which that debate now happens, social media. And it can be contagious. It can be excellent. It can be a really excellent tool for people in Georgia, people in Kiev, anywhere. But equally, we're fighting a whole new force here that, let's be honest, we're all getting to grips with, and that feeds into the broader issue of how do you have a stable society that can be prosperous, that can be peaceful, that can be secure. It's not just to box gay rights in this part here and Islamic rights in this part here. This is all part of a bigger picture to build prosperous and free societies.
But we have to deal with people that is inside of their comfort zone. They don't want to look out and understand something. They don't want to listen. They don't want to understand. They're comfortable inside their boxes. It's not easy to explain. No one's going to listen. They're just bend their own line. So,
and those might be effects of disinformation that is so prolific.
But they do not receive the information. That's it. Stubborn.
And there's nothing better than reading your own views back at you. It's much more difficult to read something that challenges your own views, actually. And, at the end of the day, we're dealing with human beings, not robots. People have emotions as well. And we have to try and find ways to have those conversations. But if we try, I think the evidence around the world shows that you can make progress. Certainly in this city, the evidence is there.
And I think the most important thing that these people who are afraid to go out of their comfort zone, I think what we need to explain, I mean, and what I hope is the message that can come across for them is that when they step out of that comfort zone, they're going to have, I think, they're going to find themselves in much freer situations, I think, and I think this is where the intersectionality comes in again, is that, you know, they're currently in their boxes and they think that they're comfortable, but once they start, you know, expanding their horizons and letting you know, other diverse opinions in, I think most people will find themselves that, you know, find that they are freer themselves and have more rights themselves and can enjoy a better quality of life because, you know, what they might think is just other people's freedoms.
You have better debate. Yeah, I think Natalie is leaving us here on a terrific point. I think it actually cuts into like the issue of polarization, that we don't have debates with each other, that where maybe like this even a very kind of a circle of friendly people talking to each other, and we mostly do not disagree, which is probably not entirely the right way to do it.
I would like to make one point, because I was today really touched by having this block of veterans in the march. And I thought back so far away in time in my beginning of being a political activist. I was leading marches, sometimes big protests of anti-nuclear activists in Germany. And the moment in my region, a very conservative region in Germany, the moment the farmers with their big trucks joined our marches was the moment many people in society opened eyes and took us much more serious. And I think that you decided to join the march in this organized form really will change the attitude, and it will be an eye-opener from now on.
If speaking about me, I changed a lot. Before the war, I was a pacifist. I was like, I didn't touch a weapon at all because it was like, it's a weapon, you kill people with it. Now it's different. I'm a different person now, and the thing is that I change a lot, and I'm trying to change the point of view as we were speaking about the people's comfort zone. I came out from my comfort zone, putting a ribbon in my patch, in my uniform at the war.
Yep.
So
actually,
that's how it looks like. If you're interested. So I'm out of my comfort zone, and I'm trying to explain people, and you know, a lot of change. A lot of people understood that we're not something strange, weird, perverts, or stuff like this. Usual people with the same point of views as it has to be in our country. It changes a lot.
Thank you so much. And actually, you know, I also shared those pictures of you with that ribbon. And for me, although I've been covering Ukraine for so many years, I've never seen active military or a person on the front lines with you know, something that is a rainbow ribbon.
Can you imagine my first time with this ribbon in my
I cannot.
patch?
That probably was petrifying.
Oh my! It was a quite an experience. You know, I was not afraid of something flying above me like bullets and stuff. I was afraid of reaction. And you know, I'm still okay.
Yep.
And people ask questions, I explain, because people at the front line at the war doesn't have time to, you know, to deal with that. They just need to work, and this is the good moment to explain that it's okay.
Okay.
So they're too busy to make some strange cliches.
Thank you so much.
All that matters is you can shoot straight.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's all that
I can
matters.
save lives.
As Hillary Clinton used to say.
My point is to save lives.
Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely.
Thank you so much for everyone for joining us. And it was a special Pride edition of Sunday Show at Hromadske. Don't forget to go on ad.hromadske.ua and also donate to that project alongside reading all the news and all the developments and great analysis about Eastern Europe. You can see the address of the website right there, and donate button. It's very easy to find. So go that, do that, follow on social media, and thank you so much again for Hromadske for hosting all of us, and enjoy your Sunday. Happy Pride.